It's getting cooler, time for sweater weather and football watching, and it's also time for you to do 10 things that will help prepare your home for winter. Hi, I'm Hope.
And I'm Larry.
From Under the Median, where every week on this channel we dispense advice about practical frugality. And it really honestly doesn't get much more practical than the tips we are going to give you today about how we prepare our home for winter. We're going to go through each of the strategies, and along the way we're going to tell you exactly how these strategies help you to save money. All right, let's get started. Number one, the first thing that you really should be doing is thinking about making sure that your furnace works. We have a friend who owned his own HVAC company for years, and he told us that he had two super busy weeks during the year, and those weeks were
The week in the fall where you first turn on your furnace, and the week in the late spring when you first turn on your air conditioner.
That's right. All of a sudden, he would have all these people calling saying, I turned on my furnace, it doesn't work, or I turned on my air conditioner and it doesn't work. And that is exactly why we tell you, go ahead, turn it on, run it through a cycle, make sure that it seems to be functioning well. Now, the other thing you want to do while you're down there, like in your furnace area, is to check one more part of your furnace. It's super easy to do this, and it will save you money, and that is?
Well, you want to check your air filter. You know, if your air filter gets clogged up, your furnace isn't going to run efficiently. It's going to be starving for air. So that's a pretty inexpensive item. You can get different types of filters. Some last as long as 6 months. And the cheaper ones, you might have to replace those once a month. So that's up to you what kind of filter you want to put in. But you definitely want to maintain it and check it. Make sure it is clear and your furnace is running free.
Tip number 2, check your outside faucets. And while you're out there, before you get that first hard freeze, make sure that you have disconnected the hose from the faucet and drained out any excess water. Why is this important?
Well, you don't want those to freeze up. If you've got your hose connected to your faucet, that's going to freeze, and it might freeze on into the inside pipes and burst one of your pipes. We actually had this happen. First year we were living in this house, I forgot to disconnect the hose off of the front spigot, and it got down to 10 degrees, and sure enough, it froze. A couple days later, after that thawed, we had a leak in our basement. So you don't want to risk that. So you want to disconnect the hoses. Now, if you have a faucet that has an extra shutoff, you want to make sure that that indoor shutoff is off and that you've drained out the pipe so there's no water standing in that pipe that's going to the outside where it could freeze.
Now, the third thing you're going to do while you're outside of your home, so we've looked at your faucet, which is near the base of your home. We're going to look a little higher for tip number 3, and we're going to tell you to make sure that your gutters are cleaned out. Now, look, the trees are shedding leaves right now faster than a toddler takes his or her pair of socks off after you've just told them, leave your socks on, right? It's happening real fast and repeatedly. So, make sure that those gutters are free to clear out any possible water from unexpected storms or things like that. And we tell you this because?
Well, I get up on a ladder and clean ours out. If your gutters are overflowing, that water can come right down. If you have a basement, it can come right into your basement. Now, we do have that issue in our house, especially with the front gutters. Yeah. If that water isn't running clear and free all the way out that drain pipe, then we will get water in our basement. So you want to make sure those are cleared off. In the wintertime, this prevents ice damming. And ice damming can be another major issue that can damage your roof, and you don't want that.
Now, ice damming, in case they're unfamiliar with it, is where the water actually freezes in the gutter right near the roof line, and it's got nowhere to go, right, except overflow that and go into the shingles, right?
Right. It's where water melting can't escape. And as it gets colder toward the nightfall, then that'll freeze up. And yeah, that can cause some major problems.
Right. So it can damage your shingles, and it can even cause damage to your actual roof. And you can get some roof leaks from ice damming. So make sure that you have all of those gutters all cleaned out. Now, while you're getting the gutters cleaned out, we will tell you if you are unstable or unfamiliar with using a ladder, this is one of those times when we say hire it done.
Yeah.
If you've already got someone up there on a ladder, especially if it's a roofing specialist, go ahead and have them take a look at your roof and your shingles, and also make sure that they take a look at your chimney.
Yeah, they can look at the chimney and see if there's anything stopping it up, at least on the top. So you want to make sure that that's running free and clear as well.
Right, and we give them this advice because...
Well, when we were renting, we had some, unknowns to us, we had some blocks that actually there were cement blocks from the chimney that fell down inside, and that wasn't exhausting all the carbon monoxide from the furnace. So we turned the furnace on in the fall, and it wasn't working right. We had it checked out. I can't remember why we had it checked out.
It was God.
And this was before carbon monoxide detectors were out on the market. They didn't have them yet available for consumers. But our house was actually getting a carbon monoxide buildup. Fortunately, we had just purchased another house and closed on it. And although we weren't really ready to move in yet, we hightailed it out of there that night, moved our bed and a table and some food. We got out of there and we slept in our newly purchased house.
We had a cooler, our bed, and like the clothes on our backs. That
Really?
was pretty much it. But we were not going to sleep another night in the house with the carbon monoxide because they couldn't fix it right away. So we were like, well, we're out of here. And it worked out. The timing was good. But that
good.
scary thing has always made us really aware of the importance of checking your chimney. And also the next thing we're going to advise you to do, which is tip number 5, and that is take this opportunity to check your carbon monoxide detectors and your smoke detectors.
And you know, those units only last about 10 years. So if you've got something in your house that's over 10 years old that you've been using, your smoke detectors or your carbon monoxide detector, you know, now's a good time to change those. And those should be tested at least once a month. Make sure your batteries are good. We would recommend specifying a certain time of the year to change the batteries out. We used to do that on January 1st. But now last year, I made a purchase. I got 4 of these X-Sense smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. It's 2 built into one, and it has a 10-year lifetime warranty. So that's kind of a nice little item. So I put 4 of those in our house. So now we have it all throughout the house. We have a check on both for smoke and carbon dioxide buildup.
Hey, just a reminder for you, whenever we show you a product on the program, we're going to make sure there's a link for it in the description of the video. Always look in the video description. It will say recommendations from the program. So just in case you want to take a look at that combination, carbon monoxide and smoke detector. The 6th tip we're going to give you is to check your supplementary heating sources. Now, this is specifically for those of you who have a fireplace or maybe a freestanding wood burner. Creosote is very dangerous, as all of you know that have one of these, and it can build up in that chimney. Make sure that that is inspected, that it's all cleared out before you build that first fire of the cold weather season. We have a couple of other ways that we actually supplement heat in our home, and Larry's going to tell you about those.
Well, I use 2 different types of heaters just to give us a little bit of extra heat in a cold area, especially in our basement. We use kerosene heaters. I have 3 of those. I always check these over every year, make sure the wick is good. I buy extra kerosene, get that all filled up. I just did that this weekend, as a matter of fact. So we're all supplied. In case we have a power outage, we will have another heat source in the house to keep us warm. And the other thing is maybe you have some electric heaters, and that's another good way to supplement heat in your home.
Now, those of you who every year when we mention our kerosene heaters are concerned for us, yes, we leave plenty of space between us and the kerosene heater. No, we would do not use them overnight. And yes, we make sure the house is properly vented. And, you know, that's just in general for those of you. If you're considering kerosene, yes, it does smell kind of weird when you first start it up. It's a pretty safe form of supplementary heat. We actually had an HVAC specialist that came to our house that said he would rather see people use those than use the wood burning stove. stoves, that they probably were safer in his estimation. But as with all supplementary heating sources, you have to be really careful how you use them, and you have to follow safety procedures. So make sure before you use any supplementary heat that you know exactly what you should and should not do.
And you want to make sure too that when you're using a kerosene heater that it's burning efficiently. If it's burning properly, then that runs at about a 99% efficient rate. So if it isn't burning properly, then it will be putting some smoke into your house, and that can be dangerous. So you got to be very careful, follow all the owner's manual's suggestions on how to set that flame so it's burning properly.
Now, if you want another form of supplementary heat that maybe is a little bit more easy for you to get, then a freestanding electric heater might be your best bet. Now, Tautronics just sent us one to try out. This is not a sponsorship, but we actually enjoyed it. It's tall, it's thin, it's lightweight. It's got 2 different heating levels that you can set it at. It comes with a remote control.
That's right. Yeah, it'll heat at 900 watts or 1500 watts. It also has a thermostat built in, so you can set the temperature on that. It will get up to that temperature and then shut off. And it will maintain, like if you set it at 72 degrees, it'll maintain that temperature. And the other thing that this one does, it oscillates. And that's a function you can turn on or turn off, but it'll oscillate, and that will evenly distribute the heat throughout the room that you're sitting in.
Yeah, so now, even though this is not a video sponsorship, Tautronics was nice enough to supply a special link for Under the Median viewers. That link is in the description of the video, and they also gave us a coupon code. And the coupon code, I believe, will get you 35% off of your first order with Tautronics, so give that a look.
The next thing you want to do, this is point 7, is you want to check the windows and seal the leaks. Now, one of the ways it's really good to check your windows is use some incense, light that up, take that near the window where it seals around the edges. And if it's blowing the smoke in, then you know you've got some leaks. It's good to do that on kind of a breezy day. And the other thing you can use is a candle. Yeah. Hold a candle up to those areas where it might be leaking. And if the wick is blowing on the candle, the flame is moving back and forth, and you know you've got leaks there.
So you want to look toward the top of the window, the bottom of the window. You want to look at the sides.
All around the frame.
Right. All around the frame where the windows come together. Those are areas that are real prone to leaking air. And believe me, we have had leaky windows in our time. Now there's a great way that you can actually seal windows. We're going to give you 2 or 3 different really quick tips and strategies for sealing leaks in windows. The first thing you can use is a product that's kind of like, I always say it's like silly putty, which makes it really fun for me to use, but there's actually a real name for it, more tight.
Well, it comes on a roll, and it's a little brown ropey kind of substance, and you can just take that off of the roll and push that into those cracks around your window, and that will seal them up good. I actually used some of those in our kitchen window down here in the basement, and I noticed in the wintertime we were getting some seepage. So that's a pretty inexpensive product. And if you're renting, it won't hurt your window when you pull that off in the spring. Why, it doesn't leave any residue, and it doesn't remove any paint or varnish.
Now, a second method of sealing that window up is just to get those clear window sealant kits. And once again, the products we're talking about, we'll leave links to them in the description of the video. Those window sealing kits, sometimes you take a hair dryer and actually get them to seal onto the surface of the window. There's different kinds of kits. They're all very inexpensive, probably $10 or less per window kit. And they actually work very well to provide just an extra layer of protection to keep a barrier between the outside and the inside air. But if you don't even want to do that, here is an easy peasy, almost free way that you can seal those windows. So you find yourself a friend that is just ordered from Amazon or someplace else, and whatever they bought was actually shipped with those bubble wrap, the big sheets of bubble wrap. So ask them for the bubble wrap, and you're going to cut that bubble wrap to match the size of your window. Then take some water and put a light layer of water onto the surface of the window. Take the bubble wrap, which has been cut to fit the size of your window, stick it up against there, and literally the surface tension of that water is going to hold the bubble wrap up against the window, and it will provide that extra layer of protection. Now, eventually, it'll dry out enough so that it will start releasing around the edges of the bubble wrap. But when that happens, just take the bubble wrap off, put some more water on, stick it back up there. It stays for weeks and weeks at a time. My cousin did this in her spare bedroom, and she said it fell off like once in the middle of the whole winter. So you're talking 3 months maybe, and she had to reapply it only one time. So it works great. And if you can find the bubble wrap for nothing, you're in business and it hasn't cost you a penny.
I have never heard of that solution. So,
all right. The 8th thing that you really need to be doing is look in other areas of your home for air leaks. So one potential area of air leak is, once again, if you are a person who has a fireplace. That's a huge opening, y'all. And so you want to make sure that that area is sealed. Make sure that the damper is shut when you're not using the fireplace so that there's no air coming in. Our grown sons actually have a wood burning fireplace in their apartment. And when they first moved in, we said, make sure that damper is closed. Because not being raised with a fireplace, they were completely unfamiliar with that. Other places that are common are like the vent, your dryer vent.
yeah.
It goes to the outside. It's a hole through your house, goes right to the outside. There's actually a vent cover you can get that'll go right over that. Make sure it's sealed.
There's areas in the basement around the joists that you want to make sure that those are sealed. Now, we had an expert come over, and they actually put some foam in there. They sprayed foam all around there. They did a test, and they discovered that those areas were leaking. And the other thing, too, along with these leaks, you might want to, if you have an attic in your home, make sure that that's insulated. A lot of times an older home won't have enough insulation up there. And I'm not really good with the R factors, but there's a certain R factor that you want so that you're not leaking heat out of your roof, because heat rises. So that's another area that you can easily lose some of that heat.
Higher R factor is better. So you want a high R factor.
And they actually came in and they actually, our attic was insulated, but I think it only had about 4 inches
it was like
of
R
insulation.
factor 10 or something.
It wasn't much.
Yeah, it was bad.
So they came in and they blew insulation, and boy, did it make a difference.
Now, the other area you want to make you're sure that you're aware of is if, like us, you have a whole house fan. This is a fan that is a centralized fan that's usually in the middle of a central hallway. And it's a very powerful fan. It'll cool your whole house down in about 30 minutes. If you have the windows open, that fan will pull the air through every 30 minutes and refresh that air. But it is also a tremendous place where you can be losing huge amounts of heat and not even realize it. When we had our utility company come in and do that energy audit, that's the first thing they did was put a heat gun up there, and they showed us exactly what that looked like under the infrared camera. And it was like, oh my word. So you can get insulated covers to go right over it, and it seals it and makes it so that you're not allowing heat to escape. And also given the fact that it was like, 2-3 feet from our thermostat.
Yeah.
And so what happened was all that cold air kept coming in and kicking on the furnace. And we had no idea that the furnace was cycling so much just because of the cold air that was coming in through the vents from the whole house fan.
And it's a nice cover too. It's magnetically connected to the metal shroud around that fan, and we can just pull it down when we're going to use it and just put it up, and it connects up to the ceiling. So it is a real nice device to have on there.
And the final place that you are going to look at as far as sealing cracks is your front and back door. And people don't think about this. You want to pull your door open and look at that weather stripping that's along the side of the door and make sure that it's intact, not smashed down, or for heaven's sakes, not missing, because that is going to help your door to seal tight. And you may want to look at that threshold all the way down at the bottom. This is super inexpensive, super easy to put a new threshold in, and it will actually keep that cold air from seeping through. The 9th step that we would love for you to take as you're getting ready for winter kind of pulls a little bit away from actually inspecting your home to things that are really important to have in your home as it gets toward fall and winter. And this is where we tell you to go ahead and stock some extra food, water, and supplies. Now, this is important because depending on where you live, you can get winter storms, and we do. And when you do, when you're snowed in for 2 or 3 days, you don't want to have to worry about whether you have enough food, water, or supplies. And if you lose electricity, you don't want to worry about whether you can keep warm. So every autumn, I make sure that I really have an up-to-date pantry list. In fact, we're working on that this weekend. That is like on our to-do list this weekend to make sure that we know exactly what we have in our pantry before winter starts. Now, if you want to know like an idea of what we really recommend for an emergency food pantry, really popular topic right now. We did a video on 20 things that we really like to keep in our pantry at all times. We're going to make sure that that video is linked in the description of this video, and I'll link it up above too, so you can take a look at that after you're done watching this video.
Now, one of the things that I have on hand in terms of losing power, because that's something that can easily happen during a terrible winter storm, I happen to have a gas generator that'll generate electricity. And it's not a real powerful one. It'll generate about 3,500 watts. But that's enough to just, run some lights. We actually could run a small heater off of that. But once again, like I said, the kerosene is good for that. What the electric generator is good for, though, is we have a sump pump. And usually during those storms, that's when you need a sump pump running. And if you lose power to that, that could flood your basement. So if you're renting or if you're in a condo, that might not be a practical thing. You might just have to think about some other alternatives that you can do to get you through a possible power outage during a winter storm.
Now, not only are we going to advise you to have some emergency supplies on hand in case of winter storms, we're going to tell you our 10th tip, which is to make a list of those. Now, we're going to run down just a few items that we think are super important to keep on hand when it comes to emergency supplies for winter storms. And these are some ideas of what you might want to consider putting on your list.
Yeah, the first thing, I actually carry this with me all the time. I have an LED flashlight. I just carry it. It has a holder on my belt. I have it with me all the time. If we lose power, I just reach down, and it has rechargeable batteries, and it's always charged up. I keep it charged. But it's good to have some flashlights maybe throughout your house. Another thing that's good is these LED light switches that have 4 AAA batteries for power, and you can just mount those on your wall in your bathroom or your kitchen. You can either mount them on a screw, or it has an adhesive. You can just stick them on your wall. And we have a couple of those in bathrooms and strategically located, so if we lose power, we've got a switch right there we can flip on.
Yeah, it's just like a regular light switch, only it's an emergency LED light source. We absolutely love those and have several of them around the house.
Yeah, and they're pretty bright. They do put out quite a bit of light, enough to see what you need to do.
Make sure you have extra batteries on hand, and not only that, make sure you know where the batteries are at. Make sure you know where the batteries are located, just saying. Yeah. Candles are always a good idea, but candles, especially if you have children or you have animals, or even people like us who could knock over candles. Those are always a little iffy for me, but candles, we have kerosene heaters, that kind of thing. Matches, people don't think about that. Utility lighters, we wait till we find utility lighters on clearance somewhere, and then we buy several of them because they are super handy to have around.
And I might say, if you're not comfortable with candles for lighting, they make some really inexpensive LED lanterns that you can buy. Once again, some of those have rechargeable batteries. Those are very handy to have in case you want some lighting in your home. I like to be prepared. I'm like super prepare guy. And so we have different ways of powering up things that we can turn on and have some lighting when we lose power.
All right, you want some extra blankets, you want a first aid kit, and you want to make sure that it's stocked and you know what's in it. Now, Larry is really big on backup sources of energy. He mentioned that he has a generator, which he does, and he also has a couple other things that we use in order to supply power.
Well, let me just say on the generator, what it's really good for when you lose power in the wintertime, even though it's winter, you still need refrigeration. So instead of losing all of your freezer goods or your refrigerator goods, we can plug into that generator and save some of that stuff. So it is nice to have that.
You want to make sure you have a manual can opener. I mean, I know that sounds kind of silly, but I mean, a lot of people don't have them anymore. They just have the electric can openers. But if you're out of electricity, guess what? You still got to open cans. So, because you're going to be relying on stuff from your pantry in order to eat, right? So make sure you have an up-to-date pantry list and make sure that you have a manual can opener somewhere where you know where it's at. Even if it's just one of those simple ones, you just need something to get you by.
Yeah.
We like them anyway. We like the manual ones.
Yeah, canned goods are really handy when you're out of power. You got something ready to just heat up. Hopefully you have a gas stove or you have a stove or something you can use. Now we actually have a camping stove out in the garage and plenty of white gas that we can use with that. So we could, cook some stuff on that if we needed to.
And the final thing you might want to have on your emergency list is extra portable cell phone chargers. Tell us in the comment section, do you have like a home phone anymore? We still do. We still have kids at home though, so we want to make sure that we have a phone available at all times. So if you run out of electricity, you may not have a phone available. So make sure that you have those extra cell phone chargers available. You know where they're at in order to keep your cell phones charged.
Well, one of the things that they started making just a few years ago were these backup bank batteries. So you can keep those charged up and you can plug your phone into those. And some of those are, they're pretty big and they will charge your phone up maybe 4 times on a full charge. So those are really handy. Now, our phone system that we purchased years ago, actually, if you leave the receiver in the receptacle of the phone, it will actually keep the whole system going until that runs out of battery. So it will run a little extra time for us.
All righty. And once again, if you're interested in any of these products we mentioned, we're going to leave links to them in the description of the video under recommended in this video. The next video you want to watch, guys, is right over there. That's that video that I did on 20 emergency pantry essentials that you want to stock up on a low budget. It's right over there. That's where you want to head next after you're done with this video. Thanks for joining us for Thrifty Thursdays, guys. We'll see you on Monday for the next edition of Under the Median.